my advice to somebody who had an idea, who wanted to start something, but maybe had some trepidation there, would be to you can kind of pursue both at the same time. And I think that that's okay. You don't have to be full time for it to be a real business. I think we got that a lot in our early career, and early with BarBees. People would be like, how's your little business? And it's like, it can feel so demeaning, but it's like, your own business, and that that's not true. And I think that my advice would be to just, if you've got trepidation around it, and if you've got something stable, it's okay to start part-time. It's okay to commit 10 hours a week to it and get started that way. It's still a real business.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's episode is cool because it's a great business story and two really wonderful, interesting, charismatic people. And it's got a little bit of a personal side to it for me with Cadence as well. Two people that have built something that is really cool, interesting, and just a remarkable story of two people deciding, let's just do this thing that we like to do, and then making it happen. And not just like making it happen, but like really hustling to make it happen. Really, really awesome story. Lots to learn from it. Before you get to it, though, please subscribe to the podcast. Turn on your notifications. My name is Aram, and this is One Step Beyond. Jess and Willow, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, so excited to be here, Aram.
All right, so for the uninitiated, for those who don't know, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm Willow. I am the co-founder of BarBees Bartending. Jess is going to fill that other gap and be the other co-founder here. We own a mobile cocktail class company that launched in Nashville, Tennessee just over 5 years ago, and we're now located in 11 regions across the U.S. In addition to that, I am also a Cadence team member from the last 5 years. So this is a collision of worlds for me.
Like Willow said, I'm the other half of BarBees, and I almost feel like an adopted family member into the Cadence family here, because I've been along the ride too through Willow along this journey.
Heck yeah. All right, BarBees. So because I've been able to like watch this thing grow from like just first hearing about it is like, oh, that's that cool thing that Willow does on the side, to it being like, oh no, this is my gig now. It's been such a cool journey. But let's start with just the simple stuff. Could you explain really what BarBees is and what you actually do? And then we'll talk about like how you've grown.
Yeah, for sure. So what we do is we offer private mobile cocktail classes in people's spaces. So we bring all of the things that you would need to learn 2 or 3 cocktails, either in your home, your vacation rental, your office space, wherever cocktails can be, mocktails can be, we can be there. We bring everything. We lead a class, typically 60 to 90 minutes, where you're going to learn all the things about your chosen cocktails, plus more bartending knowledge, and hopefully have a really good time. The heart of our classes are connection, conversation, and we really make it a point to hire team members who are just zesty and fun and spirited, because we think it's a privilege walking into people's celebrations and intimate moments. So we want to make sure there's a fabulous team member there who's going to teach you so many fun things about cocktails.
Yeah, Jess, anything to add to that?
No, I think Willow hit it right on the head. That has been our mission since day one. We actually launched as an in-person event bartending service back in 2019. We showed up to people's weddings, large scale private events, fundraisers, and through COVID, we actually had to pivot, of course, like everybody else did during the pandemic. We switched to offering virtual cocktail classes. We saw yoga instructors who were leading large groups switching to the online format, and artists who were, used to selling in public markets switching over to teaching people art online. And we were like, well, why can't we do the same thing? So we started offering virtual cocktail classes and really found our niche in that space, where we were going into people's intimate spaces. This, then it was online, now it's more in person, but going into people's intimate spaces, making them laugh, helping them form a memory with the other participants. And that's when kind of in 2021, 2022, we pivoted back into the in-person format, but this time with classes. It was really our segue to do that. So it's been quite the journey, and we're grateful for the ride.
I'll add too, I guess the zinger here is 5 years in, we did end up pitching the business on Shark Tank this January.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
it took some turns, some very unexpected turns to where now, 5 years in, we've been on Shark Tank and you and I are chatting on your podcast. So it has been a wild ride.
I mean, it's a super, super cool story. We'll get to Shark Tank because it's like when you told us that, I was dying. Like I was brimming. And of course you're like, and you're not allowed to tell anyone. I was like, this is the worst. Like it's the worst to have that kind of secret. Because then people will be like, oh, like what's going on with Willow? Like, I don't know. Why you ask? I don't know anything about Willow. Who's Willow? Anyways, we'll get to that. Okay. Beyond the business though, you two were friends to start with, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you meet?
We met at Belmont after we both went to undergrad at Belmont University, and we had a number of people who were like, you have got to meet Willow. You've got to meet Jess. You guys need to meet each other. Meet each other. You'll be a match made in heaven. And we kept hearing this from like multiple people. And one day, a friend of ours, who's still a really good friend of ours, she set up a dinner, and we were both invited. And everyone was right. We within moments we were like, we're either going to run for office to get together someday, or we're going to start a business. We're going to do something. We're movers and shakers, and we're going to make something happen. So that was back in 2018, and that's kind of part of our business story, origin story too, is that Willow gave me a call maybe 6 months into friendship. We were both kind of in deep in our classes at Belmont and looking for something new and exciting to do. And Willow gave me a call one day and was like, hey, how would you feel about going to bartending school? And, neither of us knew a whole lot about drink making. We were actually both 20 at the time, and we didn't grow. And, of course, in the States, the laws are you got to be 21 to drink. And neither of our parents drank a whole lot. And we just wanted to kind of learn the basics around it. Neither of us had intentions of like this being a career thing for us. It was just something fun to do. And so I said yes. We went to bartending school on a kind of complete whim. And that's where this whole thing started.
I mean, Willow, anything to add to that?
I think it's just our business was started with in the spirit of saying yes, which I know resonates with you so deeply. I think, what was it, 2 years ago, we had our year of yes at Cadence.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's good. In fact, sometimes I need to learn how to say no more because I am such a yes person. And Jess is too, which is why she was my call for bartending school. I said, who's going to do this with me? Jess will.
Well, so what were each of you going to school for? What was the game plan for each of you career-wise?
So I was studying international business and Spanish, and I really had no idea. I hit that last semester of college, the semester we went to bartending school, and I was going, okay, where am I taking this degree? What do I actually want to do? And I was in an organizational management class that semester, and I was loving it. It was like organizational psychology. How do you build, really effective, connective teams? And so I kind of got into that track of people development on the corporate side and wanted to do it internationally, of course, with a focus in that, which is how that conversation with a family friend led me to you, Aram. One of our mutual friends was one of your coachees back then, and he said, hey, you need to talk to my coach. His name's Aram. He's doing exactly what you're describing. Why don't I connect you? And shortly after I graduated that December, I think we spoke a month after my graduation, and I just called you to say, hey, how do I pursue something like this? I love what you do. I love that you're developing leaders. And I remember you caught me so off guard, Aram. You said, well, would you want to do like an internship with us or something? And I was like, I didn't know this call was going to be a job offer. Sure. And that's where our story started. So it was kind of simultaneously looking for that thing that I didn't know what it was going to be, stumbling into you, Aram, and then Jess and I that previous year stumbling into each other and coming up with the idea for BarBees. So I really jumped into both endeavors right at the same time. I launched BarBees in February 2019 and started with Cadence in April of 2019.
Heck yeah. And what about you, Jess? What were you doing in school? Like, what was your plan?
I was studying economics and political science, and I kind of have a background of an entrepreneurial background. My parents are both business owners, and have been for a long time. They're private investigators, which is just a really funny non-traditional career path. And yeah, both very, very entrepreneurial people. My dad's actually Canadian. I have a lot of family on Vancouver Island. So it was always, it was
No way.
serendipitous to when Willow got, got linked up with you guys. It was fun for me. But yeah, they're very entrepreneurial. I had kind of run a few businesses through my youth. And then, right as I was going into college, I started another company and got a patent. It's part of my being kind of. And so I had always had ambitions of that, and I just didn't really know what it was going to be, and what kind of the career of my 20s was going to be. And I think that that's kind of why I've said yes to so much, is like in saying yes to bartending school. It's like you don't really know what's out there until you try it, and you don't really know what opportunities are going to come from saying yes to other things. And it's often not the thing you're saying yes to that ends up being the big moment. It's kind of a waterfall of that and dominoes falling of that. So yeah, I had another semester of school left when we started BarBees. And so I was kind of just applying to jobs, didn't really know what was going to stick. And then BarBees ended up being the thing.
All right, so you go to bartending school, like you go to bartending class just for fun. You're both still in school. Where did the idea of actually starting a business? And I know when I say starting a business, we're not thinking like, oh, what it became, but even being like, oh, let's try and create some kind of service. Who came up with that and why? What was the idea there?
It was actually the structure of bartending school itself. So Nashville is such an event-heavy city, and there weren't a lot of mobile event bartenders at the time, but you could call the Nashville Bartending School and they would send someone on their roster to your event. Now, that's great, and it's very much an economical option for people, but you have no idea who's showing up at your event. And we thought, okay, there's a need for reputable, personable bartending service in this city. You want to know who's showing up at your wedding, who's showing up at your the biggest gatherings of your life. You kind of want to trust who's behind the bar, right? So that's the idea. Really came from just conversations of realizing, hey, there's kind of a gap here in Nashville. What if we filled it? And I distinctly remember driving home from class one day. It was if you could see this location too around, it was like two 20-year-old girls showing up to this strip mall in like outside downtown Nashville in this like dark room learning cocktails with a bunch of people. Like it was such an obscure thing. Our parents were like, what are you doing? I thought you're getting degrees. And we're driving home together and we're throwing around the ideas of what this mobile bartending company could be. And it's fun. It's the brainstorming part that's fun. It's what would we call it, And we're throwing ideas back and forth. And I'm not kidding. We said it at the same time. BarBees comes out of both of our mouths at the same time. And we look at each other and we go, yeah, like a little bumblebee, like BarBees. And it was there. And Jess likes to laugh at me because I call it divine conception. Because that moment, it just hit us. And the idea for BarBees, it was solidified. And we were able to sit on the idea for a few more months until I officially graduated from Belmont. And it kept rattling in our brains until we finally, registered the LLC that February.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Jess?
No, it's just we have a funny story. We actually haven't shared it in a long time, but there was a day that we showed up to bartending school, and they were explaining that once you graduate, you can go to be sent out to these events. And we were in class. One of our classmates was this girl, and she was wearing like little fox ears and a foxtail, and she was like, my name, we were talking to her and she was like, my name's Caitlin, but my friends call me Truffles. And just really sweet, eccentric girl. And we were like, this would, you can call the bartending school and get people to show up for your wedding. But again, you have no idea who's going to show up.
And
it
might be Truffles.
For some of us, like I would love Truffles to show up at my wedding. My big day, I would love the entertainment of that. I would that would just push the day over the edge for me. Like I would love that. But it's like, people are you want somebody that you can call and know, kind of have an idea in general that you might not be, getting fox ears. You might get more of like the apron vibe. So we that was kind of one of the catalysts, one of the funny little stories that got us starting to think about this. Cause yeah, like Willow said, it was like, there was either that option where, you could hire a bartender for $20 an hour, or you hire, like a big food truck style bar that would cost you $10,000 for the evening. And we kind of wanted to fill a gap there and provide something that was a little bit more affordable than those high-end services, but a little bit more reputable than the bartending school.
I
Yeah,
wonder
we
where
gotta, we
Truffles
gotta,
is today.
that's what I was saying. We gotta do a story afterwards, like, Truffles, where are you now?
Truffles,
Whatever happened to you?
Truffles, you got us to Shark Tank.
Okay, there's a big difference though, between your story and what a lot of people would do. So a lot of people would say, oh, something like, hey, you could have this $20 an hour thing or the $10,000 an hour thing. Someone should really fill that gap. A lot of people would say that. And then some people, a smaller population, would be like, hey, maybe I should fill that gap, but then they don't do it. But a teeny little part of our world are people who will be like, hey, that's a cool opportunity. And actually, I could do that. And I am going to do that. So how did you bridge the gap? Like, I know it was natural for both of you based on your personalities, and Jess, you're saying it's kind of like part of your family stories being entrepreneurial. And of course, Willow, I know like it's part of your family story has a lot of people putting themselves out there and just doing it. But there's a big difference between seeing other people doing it and really saying like, oh no, like we're going to go do that thing now. So how did you get there? Like, what was the thought process?
To be honest with you, part of the thought process was if we own a business together, we could hang out a lot more. It was we get along so well. We're so effective together. We make things happen, right? You know, even in the first year of friendship before starting the business, the amount of things we shoved into those 12 months. I mean, we were so, it was almost like efficient fun is a weird way to put it, but we stuffed so much fun into a year, and we were just really good at working together, even in a fun capacity, that we thought, hey, building something together, I think we could be really effective at that. And so, besides, the fun parts of, hey, let's spend more time together, the year we spent building memories became the foundational reason for starting a business that was all about celebration and connection. Because we thought, hey, we love creating moments together and memories. We've stuffed a lot into 12 months. How do we help other people do that? And originally, right, the idea was event bartending, being there behind the bar at people's celebrations. We thought that would scratch the itch. And it did, in a way, right? You kind of get the front row seat to people's biggest moments, but we weren't getting to connect with people individually the way that we wanted to, which is why we started the business, because we wanted to create the kind of connection that we have for others. So when we actually were able to pivot into cocktail classes, that started scratching the itch in a totally different way. We were in smaller settings. We're getting to have one-on-one conversations. We're getting to almost put on this improv show for groups at their bachelorettes and their corporate events and their birthday parties. And that's when it hit us. Oh, this is the business we meant to create. This is the kind of connection that we were intending to facilitate. And so just being locked into the model that we are now, it makes so much sense. There was something drawing us into this business, and it makes so much sense now that it was to create the kind of connection we do with classes instead of bartending.
Jess, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that is totally like that is the driver behind this business, and really any business Willow and I will start in the future together. But I also think personally for both of us, the personal autonomy that comes with running a business, and it not just autonomy and flexibility of time, because I think that's a huge misconception with entrepreneurs, is that they just have like total flexibility of their time, and that they can take out time in the middle of their day to go do X, Y, and Z, or I think that that's a misconception about how entrepreneurs spend their day. But just being able to structure the lifestyle that you want, and being able to, there's not really a model or a formula for how it has to be. There's a million different ways that you can run this thing and structure your team and communicate with your team and train your team, and all of these things I think was really personally appealing to both Willow and I. And yeah, I think it's a lot of people showed us what that was like before we did it ourselves. For me, it was my parents, and Willow and I have both had amazing entrepreneurs in our lives to show us that path before. But what's so cool about it is that there's a lot of personality types that can make this work, because the beauty of it is that there's no one formula for it.
So we live in like an amazing world that's like, full of opportunity and beauty and cool things. But also we live in a world that's like, especially right now, pretty crazy. And I think it's really easy to feel powerless in the world. It's really easy to feel afraid, to be hesitant to take a risk. What advice would you have for young people coming up who are in like either they're in school but they're not sure what they want to do, or maybe they're not in school and they're like kind of in a job they're not super happy with, and they're just kind of looking ahead and being like, I feel like powerless in this world. I don't know how I could go out and create my own career, create my own business. Any advice about like how people could start tackling some of those bigger life questions of like, how do I move forward with my career, with my passion, when it feels like everything is just too crazy?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think like I said a moment ago, it's like there's not really one mold for it. And so like Willow and I, we were both part-time at BarBees really until Willow, it was about a year ago for Willow that she went full time, full bore towards BarBees. And for me, it was just a year and change ago. You can start small. You don't have to start in a world that's uncertain. Sometimes it's not always the wisest thing to just leave everything or leave something stable behind. If you're not ready for that yet. And for some people that's how they operate best, is that their business, they need to give it their full commitment and they believe in it and they can full charge it, and that works for them. But that doesn't always work for everybody. And I don't think that people, my advice to somebody who had an idea, who wanted to start something, but maybe had some trepidation there, would be to, you can kind of pursue both at the same time. And I think that that's okay. You don't have to be full time for it to be a real business. I think we got that a lot in our early career, and early with BarBees. People would be like, how's your little business? And it's like, it can feel so demeaning, but it's like, your own business, and that that's not true. And I think that my advice would be to just, if you've got trepidation around it and if you've got something stable, it's okay to start part-time. It's okay to commit 10 hours a week to it and get started that way. It's still a real business.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. And that idea, like, I was just talking to my friend Garrett Rothman, who's a real estate broker, and he's had like a really varied career before he got there. And we were talking about the idea of, if you don't know what to do, do something. Like,
Yeah.
just get out there, start grinding, start making something happening, build your momentum and figure it out as you go along, rather than just staying stuck and kind of coasting in a space where you're unhappy.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Willow?
I think my advice would be find partners. And that doesn't even necessarily mean a business partner. It could mean a business partner, but it really just means people that are going to partner with you. For us, being partners in this business has been everything. In fact, like, I'm so intrigued by how you built your business, Aram, just you. Like, it's got to be such a different dynamic being a solo entrepreneur that now has built a whole team that you can rely on. But having Jess from the very beginning, I know it was a different dynamic than just going out. You always talk about you and your notepad and you started making calls. It's like I had Jess and a notepad. So it helped to have that person there, especially when you hit crazy highs, crazy scary highs like Shark Tank, and not walking out into a platform like that alone. So in our case, we have a partner, but we also have external partners too. We've got mentors. We've had accountability groups separately and together of people and entrepreneurs who pour into us and who we've been able to ask for advice and for mentorship. And so whatever you do, whether you are going into the solo entrepreneur route or the business partnership, having partners of sorts around you who are there, a community of sorts, to be able to bounce ideas off of, or just say, hey, is this worth it? Hey, what, remind me what I'm doing this for? Because you need those people to kind of push you on as well.
Yeah. Do you mind if I add a bit of the cadence story in there?
Please do.
So going back to what you said, being like, it was just like me, my notepad and a cell phone, and like, just my parents' dire warnings ringing in my ears, like, don't start your own business.
Don't do it.
But I wasn't, so while I was a solo entrepreneur, I wasn't, because I had clients who almost acted like partners. And
Cool.
what was something that was super interesting for Cadence, and I got to always give him a huge shout out, is this guy named Rob Hansen, who was Paul Zani's boss.
Oh, yeah.
When I worked at the company I was at before, I remember having dinner with him in Atlanta, and he hard sold me on trying to start my own business. He was like, listen, man, what you do is so much different than the company you're at. He's like, the company you're at might have books, they might have like a website, they might have all this stuff. He's like, they're just like a public speaking company. They're not like real like leadership coaches. They're not like helping people build culture. And it's cool that you can learn how to like structure a speech. He's like, but that's like, you can go to anyone for that. What you do is unique. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I'm literally at like a business dinner that I'm there for this other company for. So I'm like, oh, thank you. I don't know what to do. But he was really insistent about it. And he was like, no, you should start your own thing. And I was like, well, I'll think about it. And then the day that I started Cadence, I'd had a couple people say stuff like that to me over the years. And I think, you kind of take it in stride. But I'd always been one of those chronic, like, I'm going to start my own business someday. And just kind of what you're saying, it's like, I want to be able to build the life I want and not be tethered to someone else's business. But also, I didn't want to work for assholes. My boss was an asshole, like a straight up, like just rich kid asshole, and grew up rich, like didn't know how to interact with people. And I just remember thinking, like, I got to stop. The way that I would deal with him was I'd always use this fantasy world pressure release as like, I'm going to start my own thing someday. And it was a way that I could kind of bear dealing with this guy, was like, well, one day I'll start my own thing, but then I'd keep working for this guy. And the day that I started Cadence, I just called people, and I called and called and called people, and enough people came to my side. And so Will, you say I started the business on my own. I did, but really the partnership was from people who were like, I'm willing to take a chance on you. I'm willing to believe in you. I'm willing to give you some advice. And the first like 2 or 3 years of Cadence, it was literally like people who were like giving me contracts, but also giving me advice. Like, okay, Aram, like, so this is how you incorporate your business. Aram, this is how you scale. And these are the people that I'm also like selling services to. And something I'd encourage people to think about is like, if you want to start something and you really want to do it, and maybe you're in a bad work situation or you're uncertain. Jess, I loved your perspective of like, just start small, start something. But I also tag in like Willow's perspective. It's like, you're not really alone if you're willing to ask people for help and advice, and you're willing to seek out mentors. There's no way Cadence starts in a vacuum. I'm not some business genius that started this thing. I'm like a really fortunate, ultra lucky guy that had good relationships with people, and those people were ultra willing to help me and correct me and tell me when my ideas were stupid and like put me in the right direction, introduce me to people. And without them, I would have just been some guy working for an asshole and who's like someday dreaming of starting his own thing. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but you got to start somewhere, and you got to ask for help.
Totally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the mentorship piece too is really cool. You mentioned like some of the early on partners came along and kind of mentored and helped you through that. That's been a big part of Willow and I's journey too, is we've had some mentors that I can't say we'd be where we are now without. And it's like, that requires work. You've got to go out and find those mentors, and you've got to, for us, it was at Belmont University, they had a entrepreneur in residence program. And it's something we've talked a lot about, on Shark Tank and in some interviews and stuff since, but it really, we're not being facetious when we say like, it was game changing for us to find a mentor who has kept us accountable over the years, who has, made commitments to chat with us regularly. And, and it's a vulnerable process, because it's like, we have to report to them good or bad. It requires you to, even before the Shark Tank process, where we really had to go through our business with a fine-tooth comb. It's like, we really had been doing that all along. Maybe not as deeply, but we had to report the good and the bad. And that was a way for, I think, solopreneurs would really benefit from, if you're feeling hopeless, if you're feeling very alone, like seek out mentorship and seek out, there's all kinds of programs with local, a lot of incubators have like really inexpensive to free community resources, or some certain chamber of commerces have really affordable like resources to other entrepreneurs who are willing to mentor. And I think that that's been pivotal for us and would be really pivotal for solopreneurs.
Have either of you ever done like team or solo sports at a competitive level before?
In high school, yeah.
Yeah, but in high school, yeah. How about you, Willow?
Oh yeah, I joined the soccer team in high school to hang out with my friends. Yeah.
Right. Okay, but you're hanging out with your friends. You're doing something, right?
Yeah.
And and you got a coach, right? And the coach is there to guide you, but they're not actually playing the game.
Mm.
And if you're thinking about like anyone who is trying to do something, whether it's like you're trying to get in shape and you start working with a personal trainer or you're at some kind of competitive level, very few people are just like, I'm just gonna like go lift these weights or whatever. Like you get some guidance from someone. And when it comes to entrepreneurs, I don't want to tell anyone this is how you have to do it, but the idea of doing it without a mentor or a coach or someone who helps shine the light for you a little bit and give you feedback and direct you down that path. It's like it doesn't need to be as hard as people sometimes make it if you just tap into people who are willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I was just going to say, yeah, don't make it harder than it needs to be. There's all kinds of people out there who have done it before you.
I think it's the same philosophy of not white knuckling every part of your business, right? I think sometimes there's this like, I started this thing, I have to be autonomous, I have to be an expert in every single corner of this business. And if you want to grow a business, you gotta be able to go, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at that. I need to pay somebody else to do that. And I think that's just part of bringing other people in, whether it's people who are pouring into you or it's a team that you're pouring into and you're training up. You got to be willing to let parts of it go because you're not good at all of it. We are not good at all of it. Jess and I.
And you know, like sometimes it could feel like you can hear people say it's like, oh, people are so bad. The world's full of bad people. It's like, oh, I don't know, flip it over. If you put stuff out in the world and you ask people for help, and even if there's nothing really in it for them, a lot of people are willing to help, especially entrepreneurs. People love to help entrepreneurs if they've gone down that path themselves.
Yeah, it's true. We were really blessed to be in Nashville too, which is such an entrepreneur hub. It's such a beautiful city and it's really interconnected, especially in the events industry. And so we just had, person after person say, I want to connect you to this person. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get you into this event venue. Oh my gosh, I have all these girls who are doing their bachelorettes. It was such a cool hand up situation where we just felt really, really connected to the city and still do. It's still a huge part of our story. And we love the entrepreneur community of Nashville.
You start the business, like you do the bartending class, you see like, hey, there's kind of a gap in the industry here. We could fit in this industry. You go out and incorporate, but then what? How did you grow the business?
Well, it took a lot of twists and turns. And it's like I said earlier, it's like became masters at pivoting because it was like we started as event bartending. That was exclusively word of mouth. Willow and I tried our hand at sales and, marketing ourselves and becoming the Canva graphic designers that every small business owner becomes. And, you start to just learn everything. And that was entirely word of mouth. And then we switch over to virtual and started really pushing on social media and pushing, directly to companies who we knew people at and, who we had worked with before. And then switching over to the in-person cocktail classes, we decided that, there was a big shift then when we saw that, okay, people really, really want this during COVID. People really, really need a way to connect. People are itching for, something that they can learn. Everybody was into, learning how to make sourdough, learning how to make, a lot of people became at-home mixologists and cocktail and mocktail makers. And so we saw that we had something that was highly sought after. When people started asking for these classes in person, we realized how scalable we were. The virtual classes gave us a way to kind of give us like a almost national and international footprint because we were teaching classes to people all over, the city of Nashville, because that's where we were best known. And then all over the country, groups that had teams in New York and Austin. And then we were teaching classes to people in Tel Aviv and Tokyo. And it became sort of this wide reaching business that we never really intended on having. And so as people started gathering in person again, we realized, okay, let's use this. Let's use this almost scalability. Let's use the fact that a lot of people know about us nationally, specifically in cities like New York City and Scottsdale, Phoenix, Scottsdale area. and of course Nashville. But those two cities happened to be hubs for where we were teaching these virtual classes. And we were like, let's use it. Let's use this opportunity where we're fresh on people's minds from teaching them virtual classes to pivot into the in-person space. And so that's kind of where the scalability switched in our minds. And we actually had we laughed because we had a lot of people along the way when we were doing the in-person, when we just started doing in-person classes, who were like, this would be great on Shark Tank. This would be, you guys are the perfect fit for Shark Tank. And we always kind of brushed it off because we were, I've watched Shark Tank since I was a little kid. Willow and I spent time watching Shark Tank just to keep sharp on entrepreneurial stuff. And we were always like, well, that's mostly a product show. You see a lot of products on the show, very few services. And so, but people continued to say, you guys would do great on Shark Tank. And it wasn't until we became scalable and we're in like, I think 5 cities at that point that we were like, okay, maybe we do have something here. We're in multiple cities. We've got a formula for expansion. How can we make this work on an even broader scale? And that's kind of how Shark Tank got on our radar.
Heck yeah. Let's talk about the business model, because I want to build towards Shark Tank, because I know that was like a real pivotal moment, but a lot happened before that, as you're saying. So again, before Shark Tank, how did you build your business model? Like, how does your business work now, since you're scaling, you're in multiple cities? Like, so how does it work?
So we have teams in each city. We hire individuals who are part-time contractors, and we give them a bartending kit. So they have a number of shakers, squeezers, muddlers, cups, napkins, straws, little bowls to put, garnishes in. We give them a set kit to each individual person that they show up at every single class with. We also ship all of the non-alcoholic ingredients to them ahead of time so they can quality control. So our operations team takes care of that and is in communication with our actual client-facing team members, our instructors. The client themselves are the ones who provide the alcohol and the liquor, and then that instructor shows up with the kit, the non-alcoholic goods, and they show up and they teach that class for 60 to 90 minutes. They clean up and they're out of there.
The team members, are they like responsible for building the client relationship, or do they just come in and do the event and that's it? So do you give them the events, or do they help sell the events and build the relationship?
We give them the events. So we run everything centrally. So we're not like a franchise model where each city has its own, owner or even captain or leader. We run everything internally through our operations team. So we run the ads, we deal with the client relations. We get all of the, contact information and the clients' cocktail choices and any other specific details, like it's not just a birthday party, it's my grandma's 70th birthday party, or it's my wife and I's 45th anniversary. And we get the specific details so that we can make sure each class has kind of a custom touch to it. And then we kind of field those to the rest of our team. So we'll say, anybody in Scottsdale want this class? And it's worked really well for us, that system.
So both you and Willow are still like the sales point.
A bit, yes, but honestly, our number one driver of sales is it's Google Ads. So we run Google Ads currently, but we do sales outreach for sure, but a lot of our client interaction is actually our director of ops. So she is that one who's fielding inquiries. She's like a superstar. We're obsessed with her. We love her so much. She's like, you would love her, Aram. It's like somebody who'd be like, yes, I'm hiring this person. She's got all of her shit together. And so she has been such a huge driver of sales as well, and helping us just comb through details. Jess and I have had to, for 5 years, bounce back and forth between that visionary mindset and detail headspace. And she has helped fill the gaps of our the needs that we have in the detail part of our brains, because we're big visionary people. So it's a mix of all of us. We have some sales touch points, including we just rolled out a commission structure for our team members. So we're trying that right now. So they're not in charge of sales by any means, but they definitely, they'll get a little kickback if they drum up some business for us.
Yeah, totally. So this is what I'm interested in, is like, how did you build the model, and were there any kind of different iterations that didn't work before that you had to evolve. So when it was just the two of you, like just you two, and like you're everything, you're point of contact, you're ops, you're all these things, to okay, we're building something. And Jess, I like how you're saying, it's like, we kind of realized we were scalable, like we could actually do this thing. Like, how did the model evolve and how did you build it? Was it trying a bunch of stuff? Was it intuition, kind of gut feeling? Or were you like saying, oh no, we've got this model from like a mentor, from we read it somewhere and this is what we're going to do? So how did you come up with the model and how did it develop?
I think our virtual classes really were they were kind of the incubator for this model, because we were teaching these virtual classes in the almost exact same format that we teach our in-person classes. They're just, there's some slight differences. So for our virtual classes, we still teach 2 cocktails, usually over 45 minutes instead of an hour. But they're still the same prompts. They're still all of the same conversation starters. It's the same cocktails on the menu, where we have, all the same fun facts, and our instructors are really comfortable with those recipes. But Willow and I were the only ones teaching virtual classes for a long time. In that, especially 2020, 2021, we were pretty much the only ones teaching those classes. And so we were able to refine them as we went. And it wasn't a ton of tweaks. I mean, I think at first we were like, should we do 1 cocktail or 3? And we landed on 2. And but it's just we were able to kind of tweak it in this a little bit lower stakes of an environment. People are spending less on a virtual experience than they are an in-person experience. So it was a bit lower stakes. We were able to just tweak as we went. We actually, when we have first started the virtual classes, we were doing them for tip only. And, that was way back when everybody thought COVID was going to be 14 days. Remember that, when they were like, it'll be the 14 days of isolation and everything will be fine. But it was back then we were like, okay, well, let's just start offering these for tip only. And so again, it was really low stakes on our end because we were charging not a whole lot of money. People weren't putting a huge investment in it, but it gave us the opportunity to really, really refine and tweak our model, refine our talking points, so that when we did switch to those in-person classes, we already had all the content. We had bullet points out as conversation starters. How do you intro the class? What kind of questions really get people laughing and, building memories together? And then what cocktails work really well for people to build them out themselves? And so when we switched over, that was kind of just, we already had the model down from those virtual classes. So it was just, I think for us, it was a lesson in, get a lot of practice before you go to market with something that's that people are, you're inviting, like Willow said earlier on, people are inviting us into their most special days, into really intimate circles. And so, you want it to be the best experience you can possibly give. And so for us, it was a lot of workshopping till we even got to that point.
A comparison I'd make is, if you see like a comedy special, like, I don't know, like a Netflix special or whatever, the jokes that those comedians are telling, they've been working on for years and years, or months and months and months. And they work on it by doing it live in front of people. And they're figuring out in a live setting, oh, this is how I should tell that joke. That's what I should cut out. This is how I should tell that story. But how insane is that? Is like, you're out trying to figure out how to entertain people by doing it live in front of people who could totally eviscerate you in any moment. Like comedians are like the most insanely courageous people, because they're like out there doing something while figuring out how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like riding a bike and building the bike at the same time. And I don't say driving a car while building the engine, because that seems safer. Like riding a bike while building a bike seems insane. And that's like what comedians do. So you figured out your model by kind of doing a version of that. Like, you're doing the classes, you're like, okay, not 3 cocktails, 2 cocktails. Oh, this is a better conversation starter. But you're figuring that out literally by doing it in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, even little things where it's like, I think we did 4 cocktails one time and we said, oh, people are getting a little too buzzed. We cannot do 4 cocktails. Liability is going to kick in. We're not doing 4 cocktails. But yeah, totally, Aram. I mean, we even say we're in the event industry or the entertainment industry a lot of times, because we're hiring entertainers. We feel like entertainers in a lot of ways. So it's a fun model for our team members, because they kind of get a side gig where they get to be like an improv actor. I mean, I love it when our team members go, I feel like I'm put on a show. And we're like, good, it should feel that way. Like it should feel fun. You're trying things, you're making jokes and seeing if they land with certain people. Like when you watch a stand-up comic and they're just adapting in the moment. So and we love kind of being on the we're rubbing shoulders with the entertainment industry.
I believe the term for it is edutainment.
Edutainment, yes.
Love that.
That's the phrase. We have someone who's helping us with some of our online content, and it was like, you got to view it as edutainment. It's not just about educating people. It's got to be like fun and interesting, and they're laughing and enjoying themselves.
I love that.
All right, so you figuring it out as you're going along. What was your first full-time hire, and how the hell did that feel? Like that must have felt so wild for both of you.
So no one is full-time on our team other than Jess and myself, but our first part-time hire was back when we were event bartending. And I do remember cutting the first check and being like, wow, paying someone else. And I mean, like writing out a check, like we were antiquated. And this was literally just 5 years ago. We just were not tech savvy. And then I remember when we brought on our director of ops, and this was like an internal operations role. This wasn't just a team member. This wasn't just a class instructor. That's when I think it hit Jess and I like, wow, we have someone who we're going to be talking with every single day who's going to actually be helping us build this thing, right? They're the ones who go out and are client facing. I mean, we rely on them to carry our brand and who we are in so many ways, but they're not a part of building the actual business and the structures and the processes. And when we brought on our director of ops, she's still part-time, it changed, I think, our mindset, because it kicked us into gear to go, okay, this isn't just me and Jess anymore. Other people, they're relying on consistent salary from this, right? Like people are expecting regular pay because they are regularly pouring into our company. And so we need to keep building this company so we can keep regularly paying them. And I think having the structure of another operational team member has been so cool for the three of us to just add structure and processes into the company. She's very detail oriented and has taught Jess and I a lot, and we all work together very closely. So I think it's an honor to make those first few hires and feel like, wow, somebody actually wants to be a part of this with me, and they believe in me enough to want to make money off of me. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. You've talked about the visionary side a bit. Do you mind if I talk about the pragmatist visionary scale?
Yes, please do.
Jess, like, I know this is our first time meeting, but I'm a crazy person. So like all I do is think about human beings like all the time. Like I'm constantly analyzing people. And I was like that from when I was like a really young kid. Like I'm just constantly analyzing and like figuring out patterns and like trying to like, I'll very often kind of like make up something like the pragmatist visionary scale just so I can explain something to myself. And then I use it to explain to other people. So when I started working not actually even in the business world, this is something I came up with when I was just playing in bands a lot, is I would meet these people who were like insane musicians, crazy songwriters, but also had like demons, like were really troubled people, like really struggled. And they would always be surrounded by really capable bass players and a really capable drummer and a really capable this and that. And those people would filter out very often, but they're always very, very good, but they wouldn't last very, very long until like maybe they find some core players who would stick with them. So this is when I started coming up with this thing. And so if you think of like a straight line, and at one end it's visionary, at the other end it's what I call a pragmatist. And then at the center point, it's someone who's 50% visionary, 50% pragmatist. I think the best entrepreneurs are people who are just to the right of being a pragmatist, or maybe one position further. So the further away you get from center, the less you're able to actually do the things that your business is built on. So like Steve Jobs, he couldn't have like built an Apple computer. He couldn't have like built an iPhone. Like, you know, he didn't have those level of engineering skills, but he could think of those things. So I have kind of like three positions. It's like center position, or there's center, and then there's like position 1, position 2, position 3. And the further out you get on the visionary scale, the less you can actually do the thing. That's why you need the pragmatists to be able to do those things. But the more that you can like see around the corner or think of the next thing. And so if you think like Steve Jobs would be like a position 3 visionary, that means he needs to have ultra strong pragmatists to be able to like hold down the fort, like create things, like create the process, do those things. I think the best visionaries, like the best CEOs or business builders, are people who are like position 1 or position 2 visionaries, because they can still do the things, but they're better off when they have like really solid pragmatists that are with them who can do like the process, the details and all that. It's not that either one of you couldn't have figured it out, but that's not the best use of your time. The best use of your time is being in the visionary space. And the other way I explain it is like the further along the visionary scale you are, the more detached from reality you are, and more detached from like the human experience of trying to make those things happen. So like I find CEOs who are like kind of position 2 or 3 are detached from how hard it is to do some of the pragmatist stuff, which means they can be really brutal on the pragmatists, which means they have a lot of churn of pragmatists. They're always losing people. And they're so that's like the insane songwriter who can't keep a bass player because they're too mean to their bass player. So that's why I think like a position 1 visionary is the best, where you can still do the stuff if you needed to, but your time is better spent there. I like to consider myself a position 1 visionary, where I think I'm still like real nice to my team, and like, you know, I kind of have a sense of what's going on, but also like my time is better spent thinking about the ideas. And that's kind of how I view both of you, as like position 1 visionaries, where you're like big thinkers, but you're still super attached to like what it means to do the pragmatic stuff.
For sure.
I think that's great. And what Willow said earlier about not kind of white knuckling those business, you know, those certain aspects of the work that aren't necessarily, that you're not necessarily cut out for. I think that that was a huge shift for Willow and I, is to bring somebody on who was a pragmatist and bring somebody on who's more detail oriented, because that's when we really soared. I think like it's when we hit our stride strategically. Like it's when we started to be like, okay, now we're not like in the Excel sheet inputting all the dates and times and then shifting the dates and times when the client has a need, and all of those things are essential to our business operations, but they're the things that Willow and I, you know, stuff slipped through the cracks. And so it was like we were finally able, once we were able to pass that off, we were finally able to be like, okay, what are the best meeting structures for our team? How can we most effectively like communicate with our team and bring out the best in them? How can we bring out the best in each other? How can we prepare for something like Shark Tank? How can we, you know, like how can we pinpoint people in our life, or people who are aspirational figures in our lives, and try to like tap into their world, and you know, show up and bartend for, you know, a couple years ago, like I have this like fascination with Jesse Itzler, who I'm sure you know who he is. He's like an ultra runner and just a brilliant entrepreneur, and his wife Sarah Blakley, who we share a last name but we're not related. I wish we were. But it's like I love that legacy. She's incredible, but she's the founder of Spanx, and just, yeah, brilliant lady. But it was just like, you know, when we started to be able to push some of that stuff off, we got to get really creative with like, who are people that inspire us? Whose orbit can we get into? Like, let's, and not just from like a sales perspective, but from like a, let's learn from them. Let's like be able to plug into that when we're not in the Excel sheets for 6 hours of our day. And I think that's when we really grew as entrepreneurs, and then our business was able to grow as a result.
I love what you're saying there. Like, this is like, I think it's super important for people to hear. Like, you can do that stuff. Like, it's not fun. It's like, you know, whatever, but you can do it. But when you bring in someone who excels at that and they're like, oh yeah, and they're comfortable with it, they like doing it. For example, we have someone on our team right now who's like really good at Excel and actually likes doing it, finds it kind of soothing. And for me, it's like, I find it like maddening and I hate doing it. If I had to do it, I could. But like when you get that right combination, not only are you giving someone who's excited to do it, likes doing it, a job, and they're going to do a good job, it frees you up to do the thing you're supposed to do. For you, it's like, how do we get into that person's orbit? How do we make this connection? How do we think of that thing? One of the things I've been talking about a lot is, so in the industry that I'm in, having a book is really important. It's a legitimizer to clients. It gives you like more speaking opportunities. But I've never been able to get to it because I've been like, you know, in the trenches with the business, and I've been doing tons of coaching and like tons of sales and like building out the structure of the business. And we're finally in a place where it's like, we've got this incredible leader for the coaches. We've got this incredible leader for the courses. They're also managing the sales. Jerry is handling all the ops. She's got Patrick on the team. Like they got Michaela. Tammy's got the marketing. Like we're finally in a place where it's like, oh, I actually can do that thing now. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I should have been doing. But I was too stuck in the like, not the Excel spreadsheet, but all the other trenches of the business.
Yeah.
And we're finally in that position. And I'm like, well, what could happen now with the business now that I can put that focus on it?
Yeah, I personally feel like I had a leg up in starting this business simply by being a part of Cadence from the very beginning. Because I mean, I've been hearing you talk about this, Aram. I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna gas you up because like I've been hearing you talk about pragmatist versus visionary, all of these ways to how do we present ourselves with executive presence, things that my brain has kind of been, I've got my Cadence brain and my BarBees brain the last 5 years, I've been in between these two companies, watching both of them grow and having a hand in both of their growth. And having that mindset at an early age, I remember it was in my first or second years, you started talking about that. And that's when it clicked, where I was like, I know where my skills are. I've got to get out of the weeds so much. I'm good. I can be really good in the weeds, but if I'm going to build this thing with Jess, both of us share similar strengths. We have got to find the sweet spot between, on this spectrum that you started talking about. And so many of the lessons you started saying and the way you were processing the world and then teaching us as a team and then teaching our clients, so many of the things I was able to apply into BarBees and how we lead together. And it started conversations for me and Jess, like, hey, Aram said this thing, and I think this really describes us as entrepreneurs. And so I thank you for that, because I really feel I had a leg up. I grew up between both of these companies and have applied my skills from both to each other.
Oh, thanks, Willow. That makes me feel so good. And if we played any part in that, in your success, it's the best feeling. All right, so you're growing the business now. You've got some ops people. You're like, hey, this is where we should spend our time. You're starting to like scale up the organization. You're in a few different regions, and then Shark Tank comes calling. So tell us how that happened and just the story behind it.
Yeah. So that started happening last year. Like Jess said, it was not on our radar at all. And kind of on the down low, they have a team that reaches out, a casting team. We did not know that, but it's kind of, people know that it happens. They just don't want it super publicized. But we kind of got an email that we thought was maybe, it's like one of those emails where you're like, this is a spam, right? This is like, what is this? But it didn't hit spam account. We were like, let's check this guy out on LinkedIn. And it was a casting director from Shark Tank. And so we were like, we might as well have a call. And that started the whole process where it was like, wow, should we say yes to this? I mean, we've said yes to literally everything. We should at least just feel it out, see what happens. And did not know that a yes to bartending school and a yes to the spam email in our account would turn into us walking into the tank with the sharks. But it did. And it was a very quick process, a quick turnaround. And I remember having that conversation with you last year, Aram, when it was becoming official. And I had to say, hey, this secret thing is happening. I need you to know that we're pitching BarBees on Shark Tank. And this was not on our radar. This was not on the calendar for 2024, even just a month or a month and a half ago. So it was or 2023 is when we filmed, but it was such an encouraging process because we were not only able to, feel the encouragement of them wanting us to be a part of that, but it also was an opportunity for us to comb through our business like never before. And luckily we had our finger on the pulse, in some ways as we built our operations team, but this took it to another level. And so we got to walk into the tank last year so confident in what we were presenting to the Sharks. And then we aired in January of this year. So it's been over a year that we've been in this whole process.
I mean, there was so much that happened through that whole process. Yeah, it was the hardest Willow and I have ever worked in our lives. I think the show does a really, really good job at pretty accurately portraying like what goes down. So the Sharks know nothing about you, nothing. What we heard kind of backstage was that, their aides go out and like kind of tell them your name before you walk out just to make it better TV so that, they know they can call you out by name, so it's in case they miss your name when you walk in, it's like they're able to actually ask questions directed to you and whatnot. But other than that, other than maybe your name, they don't know anything about you. And so you walk in and you're not prepped with any questions. The only thing that we had prepared was our pitch. Other than that, we went in blind. It was like we had to watch episode after episode. We did some research, what are people do all kinds of statistical analyses on Shark Tank and figure out what questions are most asked and whatnot. And we had kind of panels of close mentors ask us questions, and especially like for our accountants and our lawyers and stuff like that, people who were close to the BarBees circle to kind of help us prep and whatnot. But beyond that, like we were walking in blind, and I think the show does a really, really good job at accurately portraying what happens. The thing that is different is that we were probably in there 30, 35, 40 minutes. We honestly have no idea. You kind of black out when you're in there. And they air like 7 or 8 minutes of it. So yeah, like Willow said, it was like it required us to go through our business with a fine-tooth comb like never before. To be able to perform under that pressure, you've got to really, really work at getting your stuff together.
Yeah. So to the level that you can share and whatever you're comfortable with, what was the deal that was struck?
So our on-screen deal was with guest shark Danny Levetsky. And so we went in asking for 10% for $75,000 and landed on 20% at $75,000. The deal, honestly, it's still in the works. It hasn't even closed, but we're still, connected to the team. And he was really, really wonderful. He and his team were really wonderful around airing with PR and everything. So it's one of those things where we're learning a lot of what it looks like to bring on an investor. To be honest, it wasn't on our radar to bring on an investor before Shark Tank. And even the event itself was so shocking. Then landing an on-screen deal was like, whoa, we had not even prepared for that to be an option. It's been a huge learning curve and a really cool one. So still in the works and still, getting to learn from him and figure out what it looks like to sell part of your company. And also being involved in the daily process of still running BarBees. So it's, you gotta be, offboarding some of those things because you can't be in the weeds when you're thinking so high level, like, selling a portion of your company.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because Willow and I went into the whole thing so open-minded because, to be honest, we were like, there's not, like I mentioned earlier, there's not a whole lot of services on the show. And so we went in really open-minded. We were like, I don't know how, like, I think we can, I know we can perform well on the show. Like like we've prepared a lot and we just, we love that kind of thing. So we went out there knowing, we'd represent our brand well, but remaining very open-minded about whether we were going to get a deal or not. It's not like we had put anything financially on the line. We hadn't gotten out second mortgages in reliance of getting a deal or something like that. It was just, we went into it thinking if we get a deal, I'd be shocked. It'd be amazing. And it's just
what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And so us getting a deal, like, I think that helped take a little bit of the pressure off. Obviously, you're pitching your business, the baby that you've been working on since, for the last 5 years or whatever, on national television in front of Mr. Wonderful and Mark Cuban, billionaires and multi-hundred millionaires right in front, a couple feet away from you, is high pressure. But I think for us, it was like, when we were able to reframe it as like, this is really just fun. If we don't get a deal, we're going to be okay. And that really, really helped our attitudes and our spirits going into it. And I think it was just a couple minutes into the tank, we got really great energy from Daniel. Our panel was Mark Cuban, Damon, Mr. Wonderful, Lori, and Daniel Levetsky. Like Willow said, the guest shark. And so we just a couple minutes into the tank, we knew Daniel was our shark. And when he made an offer, it was at first a little higher. Willow did an amazing job negotiating. Watch it, check out the episode. Willow went back and forth a couple times with him trying to get it down.
I was like, we didn't practice this part much because you don't know what's gonna happen. So Jess and I are there whispering, and you can see like the shock in my eyes, and I'm like, this is happening. I'm negotiating with the billionaire right now. Okay, where is this gonna land?
We knew he was our shark, and we were willing to go a little higher on the equity side than we were comfortable with going into it, just because we felt like it was right.
Heck yeah. So what's changed since the airing of the show? What's changed in the business?
To be totally real with you, not as much as we had thought. And that's just like, we could sit here and, give a whole fluffy answer of things that sound really nice. But I think entrepreneurship is adapting to what comes and what doesn't come that you expected to come. And so you can have all these big mountaintop moments and expect all of these like high level outcomes and, oh, this will get us here, this will get us there. And sometimes it just doesn't. And so for us, luckily though, we had that mindset, I think, pretty much dialed in before airing. We knew as a service, we are not something that people can just buy online in 10 seconds, go, oh, I saw that on Shark Tank. Oh, I'll buy a scrub daddy for $15, right? We are an event company. You've got to corral your people. You've got to choose a date. There's some buying time involved with booking a class with us. And so I think we had a really, really good level of expectation of the outcome of Shark Tank. We knew it was going to be a longer trickle effect rather than that one night we pop off and everything totally changes. So have we seen a difference? Yes. We have our following has grown. We are getting inquiries in more places than ever and trying to figure out what expansion actually looks like for us. But it wasn't that huge pop off that I think a lot of people expect or want immediately after such a big mountaintop moment. And that's okay. I think Jess and I are coming to terms with like, hey, that's okay. We did a really awesome thing. And the next big thing could be 6 months after Shark Tank because somebody saw us and goes, hey, I saw you guys on Shark Tank. I've got this opportunity for you. So it's just being patient and not white knuckling the expectations of what can come from each big mountaintop moment.
I think the biggest difference has been kind of interpersonally with our team and with Willow and I. It's one of those things where we're like, oh, if we could do that, we could do anything. Because it was high pressure. It was a lot of work. And it's like, and then for the outcome to be so positive in the tank, like, I mean, not only had it just stopped at the hard work and combing through our business the way it did, Willow and I's confidence soared just in that process. But then to go into the tank and for Shark Tank, kind of the show and the institution, and then the Sharks be so supportive and believe in us so much. And then of course, landing a deal, that was pivotal for our confidence as entrepreneurs, because it's no longer like, are we fools here? Like, did we kind of have a fun business that, maybe hit a fluke stride or something? But no, it's like these America believes in you and the Sharks believe in you. And that's really, really empowering. And then for us later to break the news to our team before we aired. And then that was really, really empowering for our team. And just to see them, be like, I was a part of building something really big. And I think their performance has soared and like their confidence has soared. And we've got 30 people or 35 people on our team. So it's like that kind of is that's a big deal for 35 extra people running around to be, feel like they're a part of something bigger. And they really helped us get to this point. And so I think it was more of like the interpersonal boost that is just the biggest difference I've seen and the biggest impact that it's made on me.
Heck yeah. So I want to hit on something like around like seizing a moment. Do you mind if I talk about 3 different kinds of meetings?
Yes. Yeah.
So the way I always look at meetings and like how tucked in and how prepared you have to be and how you speak is there's normal meetings, just like what we call like a conversational meeting. Then there's high value meetings, and then there's high stakes meetings. And the way that I talk about it is like a conversational meeting is when you're with people that you know. So like, let's say the two of you having a business meeting, it's conversational. You've normed to each other's style. There's nothing super high stakes on the line. You're just chatting, you're creating things, you're working it out. It's what I call chopping it up. You're just chopping it up. Mm-hmm. And so like if you're in the work world, you're going to have people who are super verbose or people who are super direct or people who have all sorts of different styles in between. And if you're in a conversational setting with them and you know them well, you norm to each other's style. So you can be productive, you can get through things. Doesn't mean you always love how everyone communicates, but you've normed to it. It's no big deal. But then there's high value meetings. High value meetings are meetings where you want to give great value, or you want to get great value from the other people, or you want to have like kind of an equal exchange of value. In a high value meeting, you're more tucked in. You're prepared with your facts, you understand the conversation, or you know what you want to get out of it. You're prepped. And it doesn't mean you're prepped to like ultra high degrees. It's just you're more tucked in how you present yourself physically, verbally, and your content, your ideas. high value meetings can be with people that you work with all the time. So both together, you two have probably been in high value meetings with your lawyers or with accountants or your mentors, even with each other, where you're talking about something in a more tucked in, kind of more specific, focused way. But also high value meetings can be with potential clients. It could be with cross-functional partners. It could be with people you don't know that well. High stakes meetings are definitionally different in my mind, in the sense that like there's something to win or something to lose as a direct result of this meeting. And it's like the highest level of preparation, the highest level of tucked in. Your physical presence is online, your verbal presence is online. So that Shark Tank, the way I look at it is like, and I'm sure you'd had high stakes meetings before, but that was like the ultimate high stakes because it's also on TV.
Oh yeah.
Nothing higher than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always joke that it's like the Olympics of entrepreneurship. I mean, it's just
Right.
like I always saw it as like, it's funny because I was in high school pitching businesses like to, for scholarship money or whatever, like just with businesses I had started. And it's like, I always saw it at like the real show, because I'd watched it in preparation for those, as like, that is like pinnacle entrepreneurship. And, it's like
Right.
you grow up a little bit and you're like, for us now, it's like, okay, there's other metrics to success, but like for a lot, it's like the Olympics of entrepreneurship. It feels like very, very high stakes like that.
Well, and what I love what you said earlier, Jess, about like, oh, for me, I think it's like kind of brought the team together and kind of like that we're like actually a part of this thing now, and like the way they interact. It makes sense to me because you prepped for a high stakes moment, and like it's like a win or lose thing. We're gonna go in there and either like get some kind of deal or have some kind of good experience, or you actually could have, like, there's like those famous Shark Tank things where people look bad and look totally silly. You went into like an ultimate high stakes meeting, and yeah, it's cool you got a deal, but really what it did was it like even helped solidify your brand more, your company culture more, your mission more. And that's like the idea of showing up ready to really engage with a high stakes moment with the highest degree of prep and understanding, while also recognizing we're going to have to pivot, move on the moment, like whisper with each other about stuff, like figure it out. Like that's really being in it. And I think what the two of you did there and what you've done since is like super inspirational about just like saying yes, but not being blind about it. Say yes, but prep and be ready and rise to the moment.
Oh yeah. I mean, Aram, I got to give another Cadence shout out, because it was, for the last 3-ish years since we launched open enrollment courses, right?
Yeah,
I have taught Own the Room, and Own the Room is based on all of your content. How do you present yourself? What does executive presence look like? And we found out we're going on Shark Tank, and it hits me that I'm like, oh my gosh, everything I've been teaching in these virtual sessions to people, I actually have to go and do that now on national television in front of the sharks. And I was like, praise God, I have this in my back pocket, because I really have to own the room this time.
And
I'm telling
you
you,
totally did.
Answering the damn question, all those sessions I've been teaching for years, I'm like, I have all of those things in the back of my head. And as Jess and I prepped, I'd bring up those, all of those thoughts and all the, hey, we got to remember, let's keep it succinct. Let's cut out the fluff. What does it look like to, answer bridge content, all of these things that were so involved in our prep for this high stakes environment. I felt so much more confident having the background that I did based on your content and Cadence's content and the coaches that I've worked with at Cadence. I mean, it was pivotal to walking out of there and feeling so confident in the way that and how well we did it. And I don't think I would, and I don't think we would have done as well had I not had that kind of background and training. So thank you for helping me own that room.
Oh, thank you. Again, we really appreciate that. Let's talk though about your BarBees is so much more than just like a bartending class though. Mm-hmm. There's one thing having like content, but the way that you speak, the way you use your physical presence, the way you use your verbal presence, all of these things kind of create your brand, including your online stuff, which is great, like your online engagement, and which I've really noticed in the past while, like specifically just you on LinkedIn. Like I've been really noticing not how much, because it's a good pace, but like how well you do it. So your brand, from like either of you speaking to what you put online to, I would imagine, like any of your team members going out, it's really solid. It's really well put together, and all of it feels authentic. Nothing feels like you're faking the funk. So how did you get that together?
Thank you for saying that, because it's something that, and I think a lot of like content creators, although that's not like our, that's not our bread and butter, but it's something that's come with it. It's like, I think it always feels good to hear somebody say that, because you always struggle with this authenticity piece where you're like, I genuinely have lived this, but I never want to come off as fluffy, especially on LinkedIn and places where there is a lot of fluff. But I think that it's just it comes with years of memories and years of experience with your business, and that's what I always try to draw from when we're writing a blog. Willow and I will discuss blog topic or whatever, and we'll sit down and sometimes, or if I'm writing an Instagram or a LinkedIn caption, I'll go back and pull out like our BarBees diary where we keep bullet point notes of like funny or crazy things that have happened. And I think it takes time too. I think that the most authentic accounts and the most authentic things you see are people who have had a little bit of experience and a little bit of that under their belts, instead of just like, shooting from the hip and trying to like throw spaghetti on a wall and see what lands. It's like you gotta, and I think my advice to maybe a starting entrepreneur or as somebody who wants to get into the space of being kind of a subject matter expert on something is like, live it a little bit and come from that place rather than just, like I said, shooting from the hip and trying to, just, yeah, write on things that you've lived and write on things that you've experienced. I think that comes off as a lot more authentic.
I think that's been somewhere we've had to stretch ourselves, because that wasn't initially where we felt super comfortable. I mean, we started this business when we were 20. Like we not to say we didn't have skills, we totally were skillful people and we had zesty personalities, but we didn't have a background in sales, we didn't have a background in marketing, we didn't have a background in tech by any means. So it was kind of all of these things that we've been collecting, these kind of skill sets we've been collecting, and marketing ourselves has been something we've had to grow into, especially as the world is, your brand is an online presence. It's how do you present yourself online. And so Instagram has obviously been such a big driver for us and just the demographics that we target, specifically in the bachelorette world and, birthday parties, any kind of celebrations, even corporate. A lot of corporate groups find us through Instagram. So maximizing those platforms can be so hard because you try so many things and most of them just don't work and they flop and you spend all this time creating content. But again, that's an area where I would say reach out to people who are doing it really well. I mean, it's like we've had amazing conversations with people who've been willing to say, hey, here's what worked for me, try this. Or, hey, I'm seeing that this is a trend, rather than, like Jess said, just trying something and throwing it out there. Now, do we still sometimes just try things and throw it out there because we need to post and we just need content? Absolutely. Not everything is as strategic as it could be on Instagram. Sometimes you just got to put a picture up, put a reel up, but I do think that it helps to have, some champions in our back corner, in our corner that say, hey, this seems to be working. I want to encourage you to try this. And so it's about finding the other people who are doing what you want to do better than you.
Heck yeah. Willow, and also Jess, do you mind if we tell a little bit of the story of Willow, you coming into Cadence and kind of the evolution?
Yes, for sure. You want me to tell it?
That, Jess? Well, Jess, are you cool with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just start with, because you already kind of talked about how we connected. So like for anyone listening, like when I started Cadence, I had zero plan. It was like 0% plan. It was always just this like, I'm going to be my own boss someday. And it was always that thinking because I disliked my boss. And it was just a pressure release. But at the same time, I'd kind of been unintentionally building my own business because what I did was way different than the company that I worked in. It just kind of developed that way due to my background. So day one, boom, I start this business and I'm like, I started my own business. And then like day one was amazing, but day three was like, I don't know anything about how to start a business. What am I doing? Terrified, like, oh, I have no idea how to do anything. And now I have clients. Like I've got clients who are willing to follow me. It's like almost like a real Jerry Maguire moment, except like more than one person followed me. But I've got this
Did
thing,
you
and I'm
go
like,
full time right away? Did you
right
just
away,
dive? You
instantly.
quit and went full time.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
Wild
yeah.
child.
It was like day one. This is my new business, and I didn't have a name for it. All the stuff that I just said, and I was just calling people like, "Hey, what do I do here? How do I build a business? Like, who do I call? Like, how do I incorporate all of this stuff?" But like, by the grace of whatever and by good luck and hard work, a year later, I've got this company, and I'd hired I think 3 people within the first year, um, and then it was we were it was either year 2 or year 3. I think it was like beginning of year 3, Willow, where you came in. Does that sound right?
Yep.
We've barely got anyone. Actually, it might still have been like late year 2. It might have been late year 2, but I can't remember. Whatever it is, it's early days.
Yeah. It was only you, Jerry, and Tammy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we'd had a couple coaches come in. One of them was full time, and I just couldn't get it to work because I didn't know how to. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know how to like build a company. Willow came in. We had this great first call. Shout out to Paul Zani, dude. Love you. You're a great guy, great
Love
person. I meet this person online, totally at Willow, just you as you still are today, totally genuine, like really charismatic, super fun to talk to you. We start with the intern thing, and it quickly becomes, oh, we need to hire this person. And you essentially became our model for how we develop people in the company. And that's now the model that we follow. It's like we bring people in and we just let them kind of decide where they want to go in the company. And if they work hard and they've got talent, then we'll let them build their own role and you scale from there. Does that sound all accurate to you?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So there's this moment where Willow starts talking about, sorry, I feel like I'm telling the story to Jess, and Willow, you're just like, you're like the audience of the story.
It's like I'm hearing a biography about my life.
Well,
I'm loving it.
well, Willow is telling us about this business she started. And Jess, it's so funny how you said that, where it's like, people are like, oh, that's that nice little business. And you have to be like, okay, this is important to me, but they're kind of minimizing it. Because I remember being like, oh, they've got this nice little bartending business on the side. Good for them. And we kept trying to get Willow to be full time. And Willow could not commit because she's building BarBees. And me being an entrepreneur, and I want people to be successful, I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. And I keep thinking, one day Willow's going to be full time and we're going to build this business together. She's going to be in my executive team. Like, she's going to be a partner in the business one day. And I'm just like, Willow's the future, is like part of the future plan of this company. And then as we go further and you guys become more successful and you build your business out more, there was a moment, and the way I describe it, and I'm sure you've experienced this. Sometimes when someone kicks a ball into the air, like think of like a soccer ball, and then you also see someone walking through the field, there's some point where all people recognize, oh my God, that ball's going to hit that person right in the head. And everyone knows what's going to happen, even though the ball's not even near them yet, and that ball's going to hit that person on the head. At one point, I was like, BarBees is totally going to take off, and Willow is going to leave the company, and I'm going to lose Willow. And I had that moment of sheer adulation where a ball's about to hit someone in the head right in front of you. You think it's going to be really funny, but then also total fear because you don't want the person to get hurt. And I was like, Willow's going to go off and do this super cool thing. I'm not going to be able to retain her. That's amazing. Good for her. And oh my God, what are we going to do without Willow? We totally need Willow to be in the company. And it was both feelings at the same time. And as the two of you progressed, but before Shark Tank, I had to like make peace with myself that I'm going to lose this amazing person. But as a boss, but also a person in the world, it's like, you don't want to hold on to people and keep them from doing the thing they're supposed to do, that amazing thing. And if anything, someone being successful after being in your business is like the biggest compliment. You want people to go on. But I was going through like such a like, I'm going to lose Willow. Oh my God. And I totally come to peace with it. And then you said, hey, I got to tell you, we got this thing, Shark Tank. And I was like, okay, I feel way better now. Like, I feel so much better. I'd already come to peace with it. And I was like, super proud of you guys, so excited. I wanted you to do that thing. The ball had bounced off my head and I could laugh about it afterwards. I'm like, hell yeah. But when Shark Tank came through and everything since then, I've just been like, I'd have that ball hit my head 10 different times like that. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so happy for you guys. But Willow, like your journey with us, which I know is still kind of there going a little bit, but like your journey with us has been so enriching for me, because that idea that you can have someone who's like fresh out of college join your company, and they partially grow up through your company to go on and do their own thing and do it super well, is like, it's one of the coolest things that ever happened to me professionally.
Mm. Oh, Ram, thank you for sharing that. That was a new perspective. You know, we've talked about my story and our journey together, but I hadn't heard that piece, and I I love that, because I started feeling that energy too of like, oh no, I've got these two amazing companies that are both growing. Oh yay, they're both growing, but oh no, what am I gonna do between these two companies that I love and that shaped me and set the foundation for my entire career? Because I remember my first few years around when you pushed me out into client facing stuff early on. You just said, all right, yeah, I want you to take this call. I had someone say early on, oh, hey, you're just like little Aram. And it was the compliment of my life. I was like, thank you. Like I want to, I want to use the skills that he's instilled in me and that I've watched him and mirror this impact that he has on people. And so it was like growing this career with you and building BarBees. It was an emotional thing to have to decide, okay, what does my path look like right now? Because I know that if I stay any longer between putting this much time and energy into both places I love, I'm going to end up screwing this up with one or both of them, right? I'm going to end up half-assing one or both, and I'm going to hurt two people that I care about so deeply, which is both of you two. I mean, both of you two we're part of building my career. I'm looking at both of you. And so it was that pivotal moment of, oh gosh, I think I need to pour all my heart and soul into this. And Shark Tank kind of being that big push to do it. It was kind of that divine kick that was like, hey, here's a big sign. Here's the step you need to take right now. As emotional as it was to say, Aram, I have to go. I have to go be on Shark Tank.
what a way to go. Okay, but based on that, what advice you have for someone who, I guess really it's like when to know to take the leap and bet on yourself. So let's say you're working somewhere and it's great, you're happy with the culture, you're doing well financially, like you're feeling good, but you've just got to bet on yourself. Any advice for people who are facing that kind of challenge?
I think it's be as kind and honest in your conversations around it as possible. I knew, as sensitive as the topic was around Shark Tank with you, Aram, I didn't want to have this like fluffy, vague, seemingly avoidant conversation where you didn't know why I was leaving. I wanted to be as clear and kind as possible to you, so you knew why I was taking the steps. And I think that was necessary in all my conversations around, other things I had to step away from, and relationships that I had to say, hey, I am under the most stress and pressure of my life. I cannot pour into this right now. I don't have the time for this right now, because I have to pour everything in my heart and soul into this. And the encouragement and love that I was shown, because I think I was able to be vulnerable and honest about what I could and couldn't do during that season, really helped set me up for success, rather than trying to juggle everything, trying to please everybody while I also did the hardest thing. I kind of put everything else to the side during that season. I kind of said, okay, this is number one priority. Jess and I both did it. And we went full time with BarBees. We poured fully into it and had those kind of honest, hopefully loving conversations. And then it paid off, because we were able to do the thing, I think, to a level of excellence that both of us are so proud of. And I think the best that we could have done with what we had at the moment. And so I think it's not bullshitting your reasons why you have to jump into the big thing. Just doing it. And if people don't understand, people are going to get their feelings hurt, right? But at the end of the day, if they're people who love you, they're going to support you, and they're going to go, all right, I understand it. This is just a season. You've got to bet on yourself for this.
Totally. Super, amazing. Totally perfectly said. Jess, any thoughts on that? Like about anything we just talked about? Because I'm talking about like a ball flying through the air. I'm giving a lot of analogies. We covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Jess, any thoughts on my life story?
Oh my gosh. Well, and that's why I kind of at the top of this call, I was like, I feel like I've been a part of this journey, even though I've never
Oh,
met you, Aram. I mean, you know how it feels like you end up following people on Instagram or something, and like, an influencer or somebody who, even like a friend of a friend or something. You follow somebody on Instagram, and all at one day you're like, my friend so and so, and it's like, I don't even know that person. What am I? Or a character on a show, and you're like, who? You start to think of them as like an integral part of your life, and it's like you've been that for me
you
as
Aram.
president. I've never even met you until today. And I'm like, you've been a character in my life, and just so, influential in not just Willow's life, but it's like she said, it's like we pulled out the stops. We pulled out all the stops about like what, every part of our background. It's like I had pitching experience. Willow has like extensive public speaking and leadership training and presenting herself, and kind of that media training side, like of talking to large groups of people. And so it's like we pulled out all the stops, and your lessons were just pivotal in all of that. But it's been such a cool journey to sit on the sidelines of, and I'm very appreciative for you. And I've had my own people that have like rallied behind me, but I'm just, because I've had my own, I'm so grateful for the people who have done that for Willow too. It's like, who have gave us the starts to be able to kind of pursue two things at once, and then when one took off, run with it. But yeah, I was thinking about the question you just asked, Willow, about advice for people who might be afraid, and I think to launch into their own thing. And I was thinking about how when you're excited about the next chapter, and like Willow was, I think that comes off as so genuine. Like, I think a lot of people are afraid to like quit jobs, and a lot of people are afraid to jump into things, even though that they have something really, really cool coming up next. And it's like showcasing your excitement and showing that you're so excited about the thing that is coming up next is so genuine, and it gets people on board and to rally behind you, even in situations where you're leaving a situation that you might be sad about, and as an employer or an employee, you can be excited for them and be happy for them. And I think that, yeah, that's been a big part of our story with that.
Totally. All right. Well, as we're heading towards the close of the conversation, is there anything that either one of you want to bring up? Anything that you want to talk about? Any ideas or anything you want to ask me?
Jess, what have you wanted to ask Aram for the last 5 years?
What's your favorite mocktail, Aram?
She's been dying to know.
What did we have for our wedding, babe?
Passion fruit, ginger, lime.
Passion fruit, ginger, lime. What did we end up calling it? The Palm Zing.
The Palm Zing. Okay, good.
Because we got married in Palm Springs.
Yeah, the Palm Zing. That's amazing.
Oh, no, we called it the Palm Zinger. That was it, the Palm Zinger.
Did it have kombucha? I can't remember. What did we decide on?
Did it have kombucha? Lime juice? Lime juice and ginger beer.
Ginger beer. You were the ginger lover, and Monica was passion fruit, right?
Monica's the ginger lover. I'm the passion fruit lover.
I mixed it up. Yeah. That's right. I knew we mixed it for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be my favorite. It was super good. It was a huge hit. We had a total blast with it.
All right. Well, that's what I've been dying to know, Aram.
It was really good. I also I laugh how you've launched this bartending thing that I'm so psyched on, even though I don't drink. I'm like, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you guys. And I don't touch a drop of alcohol.
No, I know. And even just supporting us through COVID, y'all did several virtual cocktail classes with us. At least with me.
Yeah,
I taught with the team, and that was so fun.
We wanted to support you guys. All right. So as we're heading to the last part of the conversation, we're going to go into the crucial three. I'm going to ask the two of you 3 increasingly difficult questions.
Okay.
You ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay. The first question is, have you encountered any negativity or pushback at any stage of the business? And I mean not like business challenges, but I mean like negativity, pushback, toxicity, anything like that. And if so, how did you handle it?
They get harder from this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, COVID, it completely shut our business down. It shut down our original model. And so I think it was not necessarily negativity coming from one person. It was the world's negativity, the environment of the world that completely shut us down. I mean, we had an entire calendar of events, weddings that were on the books that every single one of them canceled, and every single one of them wanted their deposits back. And when you're dealing with a year and a half of business under your belt, right? And a world that is seemingly shut down and you're in the events industry. I mean, Jess and I really were like, okay, this might not be our career. This might not be what we do. And it was virtual classes. Someone started asking, one person asked for, they needed a 21st birthday party virtual class. And we said, sure, yeah, we'll do that. That sounds great. And that's what started the iteration of what BarBees is today. And so I think it was just saying yes to whatever people wanted, because we were like, sure, let's just, this business isn't what we made it, so we'll say yes to whatever you want us to be right now, because we're trying to figure out how to survive in this world.
I think when we started our company, a lot of people were really confused. Like what, like you're starting an alcohol. So my parents don't really, I mentioned this earlier, my parents don't really drink. My mom definitely doesn't drink. And you know, we have a lot of non-drinkers in our lives for various reasons. And I think a lot of people were like, you're college educated, you know, you're, for me, you're on track for like law school or whatever, you know, you've got like your college, like, what are you doing? Why you're bartending? Like, that's an interesting, you know, and not, we love bartenders and it's not that, but it's just like, we just, you know, helped you spend all this money for a degree, or for Willow, it's like, spend all your own money for this degree. What are you doing? And I think that's when we became great, like that's when we became convincing, and that's when we became salespeople, because it's like we had to pitch it to a few people in our lives who are now totally on board, and grateful we had the pushback to like learn that skill, but that's when we had to learn how to sell ourselves, I think.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Aram,
Both of them are great, but Jess, I am laughing super hard at that one. Like, for all sorts of reasons. I could just imagine the conversation. Like, we just spent like tens of thousands of dollars and this is what you're gonna do? Like, what are you doing? What are you gonna say, Willow?
You'll love this, Aram. My sweet Nana, my favorite person in the entire world, to this day, 5 years in, just as we talk all the time. Every couple of months, just double checks. Now you don't get people drunk, right? You just enjoy. They don't ever feel the alcohol, right? And I say, no, Nana, they just enjoy. It's just about learning. It's just edutainment. That's all it is, Nana. Don't worry.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. All right. Second question. This is a bit of a vulnerable one, so take your time with it. Being an entrepreneur is fun and amazing and hard and difficult, and you got to work your butt off, and it's got the highs and the lows, as I believe, Jess, you said earlier on. But one of the things about being an entrepreneur is you learn a lot about yourself, a ton about yourself. So for each of you, what is one thing that you've learned about yourself that you did not know before you started BarBees, and that you realized about yourself and you haven't liked? You didn't like it about yourself and you've had to work on to overcome or address?
I mentioned this earlier about some of the misconceptions about like being a business owner, is that you have, I think you go into it thinking people have total autonomy of their own, you at any moment they're flexible and autonomous of their schedules. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions there. And I think it's a daily battle for me, but especially recently, I have felt this kind of time management struggle. Like, and it's like, because I just feel like I'm doing so much, and it's like I have a hard time carving out time to be creative, and I have a hard time, and it's like this constant battle and push with myself that I'm like, I think there's a lot about entrepreneurship I like, but I think the having to be completely in charge of my own time and schedule, and be accountable to like myself and to Willow, but like to myself. And I think that's been really hard for me, and it's becoming, sometimes some days I feel like it's harder than others, and it's like it's been this constant struggle, and I don't like that. It's like it's one of those things where I'm like, I've been at this for 5.5 years. Why is this not easy? Like, why am I still feeling like I'm clawing back at time, trying to get my own time back? But it's a grind. Like, entrepreneurship's a grind, and I think that I've had to find grace for myself to be like, okay, well, look, this eternal battle you've had with time, you've been able to figure out a whole lot in that time. But yeah, I think that's been a recent struggle of mine. But
yeah, okay. How about you, Willow?
I think that my capacity for people is smaller than I've always been told it is or felt like it needed to be. Um, and I think I started in being a very much people person, a charismatic person. It's very easy to push me in front of people and to be the face of things. And in the last few years, as the business has grown, and as I was working, two jobs, I got really, really tired of that, the people facing piece. And I started to have this identity crisis because I was like, people are my thing. I can't get tired of people. People are my thing. I know people. I know how to connect with people. I know how to talk to people. I can't be tired of people. Stop being tired of people. And I went through the last Jess's, we've talked about this a lot, where I used to, or at least I thought I used to have this just unending energy for people and activity and back-to-back things and stimulation. And the last few years, maybe I'm just describing aging. I don't really know. Maybe that's what this is. But I've had to learn how to say yes to the right people engagements and no to the wrong ones, and not just think, oh, you're good at people, say yes to every possible people engagement you could ever be a part of. And I think Aram, you and I had some conversations about this too, as my role changed at Cadence, because I shared a little bit with you where it just, I was burning out. I was burning out, and connection with people felt like it had to be put on, and it had to be a professional skill rather than something that just oozed out of me, because I've just always been a people person where, connectivity just, it was natural for me. And when I started to feel that it was a professional skill and not my natural energy anymore, I started hating it in myself. And I would hear, that voice you put on when you just aren't feeling it at all, but you have to just step up and do the thing. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And part of adjusting that was just saying no to more. As much as we've been talking about saying yes this whole time, because this company was built on, both companies were built on yes. For personal longevity, saying no to certain things in personal professional life has been so huge for me. And a lot of it has been, no, I can't teach that cocktail class right now. I do not have the energy for it. Nope, I actually can't lead this team meeting. Let's hand it off to the ops team right now. No, I can't do these certain things, where it's just playing to your strengths and letting the natural, not stifling your natural skill set because you feel you have to show up with your natural skill set at all times. You got to give your natural skill set a rest sometimes. So
Exactly.
I'm still learning to balance it.
Totally, totally. All right, last question. It's the opposite question. So through this process, what is something you've learned about yourself through doing BarBees that you absolutely love about yourself and that you feel so good about and you're proud about? So what's a diamond about you that you've discovered that you're so proud to say that that's a part of you? So Jess, you went last time. We'll start with Willow. Willow, what's something you've learned about yourself that you're really proud of yourself for?
I love building a team. It has been the joy of building BarBees. I thought, again, being a people person, it was going to be clients. Let me be the face of this in the sales world. I kind of just hate that. I love pouring my energy and my people skills into my team. I kind of was a big part of building up our training program for onboarding and creating all the content for that, and I loved it. In fact, it was kind of, I jumped into it, and Jess and I did it together, but I said, hey, I can kind of lead the charge on this. I actually really like this piece. And I love building a culture that people like working in. I like building curriculum for people that help them feel really well educated to represent our business right. And it's been such a fun thing to exercise and let other people focus on their strengths and be that outward face, while I get to kind of look at our team and pour into them and love on them, because oh my gosh, they're just so fun. It's so fun to like build up those relationships that stay, rather than that client that comes and goes. They come and go, you give them a smile, but your team, they're who you pour into.
I've kind of, through business ownership and then through specifically the Shark Tank process, I've found that I've kind of almost found a new passion of mine, and it's almost like digging up an old passion, but I had the chance a couple weeks ago I just recently moved back to West Palm Beach, Florida, which is where I grew up. And I had a chance to help my high school, the school that I actually went there K through 12. They have a really phenomenal business program with the same teacher who was there when I was there, is there now, and it's actually her last year. But I was able to go back this spring and help them refine they did their own Shark Tank. And so I went in and coached them on their pitches, kind of the first minute and a half of their spiel. I went in and coached them, and it was really hard on them. I was like, I went in and I bullied them a little bit, like we got bullied. But I was just so proud because I was helping them at the workshop stage. And then I went in and I was a shark for them a couple weeks later. And, you know, while they went back to their classrooms and worked on it with their teachers and worked on it with each other and workshop each other. And I think I've just dug up this old passion of mine where I love high school students and I love pitching businesses. And this is something that we've done. And I think, yeah, it's kind of become this focus of mine where I'm just like, how can I make a bigger impact with this? You know, how can I help people, not necessarily coach them for pitches? Well, I would love to do that, but it's also like help them refine their businesses and be confident in their business, especially in those early stages where they're trying to raise money or just trying to get people on board. And I've just loved that. I've found a lot of joy and a lot of gratification in that.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we have done it. We've completed our interview. Thank you both so much for giving us your time. Any last words, anything you want to share as we're signing off?
Just want to thank you, Aram. Thank you all for having us. Thanks for pouring into me, and then, you know, by proxy, also pouring into Jess the last 5 years. And if any listeners want to book a class with us, we're located in 10 cities nationwide. And if you're not in our 10 cities, we're virtual. So we'd love to shake things up with the one step beyond listeners.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we put all of that information in the bio page for the episode. So if anyone wants to check it out, just check out all the links below and definitely do it. Our team has had several virtual classes with them and they have been totally awesome. Jess, any last words as we're signing off?
Nope, that's it. I really, really appreciate you having us today. This has been such a good conversation.
Heck yeah, you are both awesome. BarBees is amazing, and I just know you're both going to go on to do such incredible things. And I'm not just excited for what you're going to do with BarBees, but I know both of you are probably going to go on to be serial entrepreneurs that go on to do more and more and more things. So I'm excited for all that. So everybody, I hope you got so much out of this episode. Again, as an employer and an entrepreneur, it's so amazing to have talented people come work for your company and stay. That's incredible. But it's also incredible to have people come in and add their special thing to the company and then go on to build something of their own. This for me has just been such I've gotten to be like part of the story, but also like a witness to the story, or I could get to be the audience because I got to see how the company was built and where they're going. And I just learned so much myself from everything they've done. So with that, I hope you got as much out of this episode as I did, and we'll see you next time on One Step Beyond.
One step